thank you so much for joining. You just got back from your travels.
That's
Um,
right. I mean, yeah, I come and go, especially since the fall of the Assad regime. There's been even more going on in the region than there was before, mostly for worse as well, but also some shoots of hope among that in the Kurdish regions. So I was actually in the last trip. It was this kind of related trip to watch this disarmament ceremony between some Kurdish militants and the Turkish armed forces, which is not what the book is about and which we'll get into, but which was another unexpected consequence of this crazy like maelstrom of stuff going on in the Middle East that we're gonna get into, I hope.
yeah, I'm excited by that. But first, because I did this five craziest ideas for the future of Gaza, you had this Jacobin article out about Jared Kushner and his purchase of an island off of Albania. And you basically said that while Kushner's not really invested directly in like Gaza plans, that maybe this island, Sazan, um, in Albania could be, as you said, like a dry run for a post Gaza kind of like model. Can you just explain? You went to Albania to cover
That's
this.
right. I mean, yeah, it was this trip was crazy. So I guess I started the trip not knowing that much about it. So as people probably remember, Donald Trump, Kushner have been talking about developing Gaza into this like Gaza Riviera, getting a lot of that Gulf money in, ethnically cleansing the Palestinians, setting up these luxury resorts. Jared Kushner is putting $2 billion into a project to develop these luxury resorts over the top of a nature reserve on this beautiful island off the coast of Albania in the Mediterranean Sea. So I started out thinking it's just going to be. I was kind of just comparing these two projects. You know, what can we learn about these two different tentacles of the American empire? But when I got there on the ground, what I found was actually the connections go a lot deeper than that, right? And the company through which Jared Kushner is doing this project in Albania is called Affinity Partners. And this is a company which was set up to try and get Arab money into Israel. They're deeply invested in the settlements in the West Bank, Saudi money, Gulf money, bringing all of that in. So it's actually, there are more ties there, and the ties between the Albanian state and the Israeli state, which is a whole other story and is crazy in itself, as I describe in the article, are going deeper and deeper as well.
It's insane. And I didn't know that, we all know that Jared Kushner got like $2 billion from the Saudi government. It's like, okay, well, what is that for? But, but through Affinity Partners, you're saying that the Saudi government is actually invested in these ostensibly illegal projects in the West Bank, but also there's a company called like Shlomo Group that's invested that create helps build um, naval ships for the Israeli Navy. Like Affinity Group is this funnel for all of these, Gulf states' money. This is Jared Kushner's thing, so that they can kind of not be directly invested in Israel, but kind of like roundabout invested in Israeli destruction. I mean, Palestinian destruction, really.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and this goes back to before the beginning of the Gaza genocide, right? This is Donald Trump's long-term plan for the region. This is the Abraham Accords. The idea that basically money talks, investment talks, and he can get these Arab states to turn their backs on the Palestinians and bring them together with Israel in the occupied West Bank and elsewhere. On the one hand, obviously, that's kind of been slowed down by the Gaza genocide, and a lot of these states have taken positions against that. But that's also cleared up space for that investment to take place in the future in Gaza. And that's then the interest for them of getting Albania in, because unlike a lot of the other, Albania is historically a Muslim country. And if they can get them on side, it helps Israel to say, hey, look, we're good guys. We're friends with these Muslims, so we can't possibly be committing genocide against those Muslims.
Right. You called it a like a Zionist Muslim microstate, which is absolutely terrifying. And of course, it's on top of a natural preserve. And I thought it was interesting. You interviewed someone there who was like, look, our country is basically a mafia. Like whatever, the prime minister, Adi Rama, like whatever he sells this land to Kushner, no, the people don't have a say in it. And it's very, as our country, the United States, gets slowly turned into a, mafia kleptocracy, you see like, oh, this is our future of having zero say in, the land that our government sells. Like, oh, okay, well, Yosemite now belongs to the Emiratis, so goodbye. Like, I mean, this is the kind of deal making, and like, and it seems like Israel and Albania, as you talk about, have like lots of defense ties, and it could be like a staging ground for them as
Yeah,
well.
that's right. I mean, yes. I mean, when I speak about the microstate, I mean, this is like truly bizarre. But what the Albanian president wants to do is establish a new independent state in the Albanian capital, which will be the smallest state in the world, for this Muslim minority that are headquartered there, the Baktashi Muslim minority. Israel has spent the past like 10 years grooming basically this religious group, drawing them into its orbit, getting their influence, with the result that this is basically the only Muslim religious group which has not condemned the genocide. And the reward for that, apparently, is this insane plan to set up this new state along the style of the Vatican City, but deeply under Israeli influence. And I mean, this sounds crazy, but it's, yeah, the latest plan from this guy, Edi Rama. And yeah, as you said, Edi Rama, he has close ties with Donald Trump, but then also with some of our other own shady characters here in Europe, particularly Giorgia Meloni, the neo-fascist leader of Italy as well. So there's this kind of nexus, right, of strong men, particularly in this Eastern European region, which is so crucial between the Middle East and Europe, where people are trying to get involved and hop on the Trump bandwagon, and everything's for sale, right? Everything's got a price.
And also the microstates idea, or the Vatican City idea, it really fits squarely within the Trumpian oligarchs' plans to do privatized cities around the world, so that, Greenland being, cased by the Praxis project that is in part bankrolled by Peter Thiel. Like, for me, when I read your article about, Cezanne of Albania, I was like, oh, this really does sound like just, we're allowing privatized nations that are not subject to any of the laws of the country they're in to just kind of flourish. And it is just ripe for investment, to say nothing of like very, very dangerous.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, and it's also part of, from the Israeli side, it's part of what they would call their periphery doctrine, right? So for Israel, it's all about forging these ties with anyone in the Muslim world or the Arab world who they can get on board with, particularly people who are around like the fringes of that, people who are looking for friends, looking for influence. And then obviously that fits into the Trump strategy that you've just described. So, this relationship between Trump and Israel, it's not just, about the domestic votes in America. It's also part of a broader geostrategic approach to the whole Middle East and their vision for this region falling firmly under their sway, with Israel as their key partner in the region.
But I did want to ask about your book, Hope Without Hope, Rojava and Revolutionary Commitment, because I think what I've been thinking about when I think about Palestine and the collusion with so many of these Gulf states in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians is about popular power and people. And we're talking about places, whether it's UAE or Saudi or Qatar, places that are deeply undemocratic, that have full control over their citizenry. And they weren't necessarily, there weren't Arab Springs in these countries. But I do think, but Rojava and the, Kurdish revolution in the north of Syria did come out of this moment of revolution, that then, of course, turned into the Syrian civil war. So just explain, first of all, maybe before we get into it, who are the Kurds, for people who don't know? And they have this like also amazing history of fighting alongside Palestinians at one point.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the Kurds, if people have heard of them, will probably know, are one of the world's largest people without a state of their own. So they number some 40 million people, but their historic homeland, following colonial intervention, was divided into four parts, variously occupied by Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. As you can imagine, it's not a great neighborhood to be in. And, all of these countries with their different allegiances over the years, whether they've fought one another, been allied, have been united on one thing, which has been denying Kurdish right to existence, repressing them, torturing them, committing genocide against them in Iraq, and so on. through that or this experience of statelessness, then the Kurdish political movement has come up, with this sort of quite amazing response, which is to give up on fighting for many of them for a Kurdish state. They say that any and all states, even if there were a Kurdish state, that would be repressive as well. And what they instead fight for is this kind of grassroots, bottom-up political federation.
So how did this all kick off after the Syrian civil war began, and why did you go there? Clearly, this revolution in its beginnings, I guess, attracted you there. You lived there for 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it was kind of, in one sense, total coincidence that the opportunity, the crisis occurred that allowed this revolution to take place. But on the other hand, of course, they were organized, they were ready. They're a very militant force, and they've been preparing on the ground, struggling for years and years, without always getting very far. But then, as you said, the Arab Spring took place, so this massive wave of protests and uprisings across the Middle East over a decade ago now, in 2012. And in Syria, that brought the withdrawal of the Assad regime from the Kurdish regions, and created room for this quite utopian vision to begin becoming a reality on the ground. And they were able to begin implementing that first in Kurdish regions. But then what people will probably remember is this Kurdish war against ISIS. So in the course of this kind of power vacuum, as well as the Kurds building up their own vision, ISIS turned up and were trying to build up their own vision, also challenging these states, but with a rather different idea of what society might look like afterwards. And so, the Kurds, fought this war against ISIS, and then after also against Turkey, which is, as people again may know, existentially opposed to the Kurds. And so in the course of those wars, they lost a lot, they suffered a lot, but that also brought the room to expand militarily throughout the region and to survive until today. So a lot of Westerners have been out there. So particularly from America, from the United States, a lot of people went out to join the fight against ISIS. Some of them, on the left, like myself, some of them people, whatever, who were just concerned by ISIS and had their own reasons for being there, but nonetheless went and fought alongside the Kurds. And it was, something really beautiful to witness. Me, I'm a journalist. I'm not a combatant, but I was nonetheless, I guess, intrigued by the idea of this. We were all been involved, I think, over the years in these kind of Occupy movements, these protests, these grassroots bottom-up movements, but they all kind of, fail, they dissipate, they fade away, they can't really challenge the state. Whereas, in Rojava in Syria, they have this kind of grassroots bottom-up ideals of direct democracy, of things we might like to see happening in our own communities, but because they also have this incredibly powerful political movement, they were able to make it a reality on the ground. And that's what I kind of wanted to witness. I went out there, I fell in love with it, I fell in love with the people. It was very hard, as you can imagine, to be there during the war and to see also the compromises and the setbacks that were being made. But that was what I wanted to follow, and that's what the book is all about as well.
Yeah, and so it's almost like their statelessness in and of itself, and being divided, as you said, Kurdistan not existing and having the Kurdish people being divided between, 4 different countries, and their statelessness kind of like led to their more bottom up approach, where they're not necessarily vying for control of the government, but they were vying for their own survival and not being taken over by, let's say, ISIS. And yes, that is why they were, there was a tension brought to them, and it kind of this, like, again, the anarchist, like, part of me gets very excited about these models, and I think a lot of people who are like, oh shit, they made it a reality, and you say it was like maybe perhaps one of the only successful revolutions coming out of the Arab Spring. But how does Rojava operate now? Maybe some of the more like the feminist, the ecological, the ways, the directly democratic ways that they operate, but also how were they able to even carve out their, and like how were they even able to do it?
Yeah, I mean, let's not like sugarcoat it, right? Like, obviously, having this stateless identity, it has brought, this unique sort of bottom-up political vision. It's also brought a lot of hardships. One, there's a lot of Kurdish people who would love nothing more than to have the safety and the protection that a state would bring. 2, that condition opens you up to exploitation and military attacks. And, the United States Israel and all of those regional states I just mentioned are all trying to influence and get their own claws into what's happening in the region. That's hard to resist when you're a non-state actor. And three, to actually survive, especially in a neighborhood like the one that I've just described, you need a lot of things that look a hell of a lot like a state. You need armed forces, you need something that looks like a police force. This region is funded through black market oil sales. They operate their own borders. So I think if you go there with this, kind of utopian idea it's going to be some kind of anarchist paradise, then you're going to get disappointed, because that's not what it looks like on the ground. It looks like hardship. It looks like struggling. But that also, for me, is the interesting thing of, how it actually works today. And the thing that is kind of most prominent, which is most remarkable, which you mentioned, is the leading role for women in this whole thing. So, as soon as you get there and you walk in the street, it's very striking that women, famously, as people may have seen, took up arms and are on the front lines of the armed struggle, not only in the symbolic way, but, the commanders of the front lines throughout the region. Every political office is filled by one man and one woman. There are autonomous women's structures, women's conflict resolution structures, women's unions, even autonomous women's villages throughout the region. And that is one of the things which is so remarkable now, that they believe that until women are liberated, society cannot be liberated. And to them, that's not just a slogan, that's something that they are really building from the ground up. And then alongside that, you have this commitment to council democracy, to forging alliances, particularly with the regional minorities, but even with those communities that were formerly in ISIS that were trying to kill them not so very long ago, to sitting down with them, to talking, to trying to reach resolutions. And these are the processes they're in. As you can imagine, it comes with a lot of compromises, which I talk about in my book. But the fact that they're staying committed to that and trying to deal with people on the opposite side of the aisle and to resolve things in this way, while also fighting to survive, is what is so remarkable about that region for me.
Here's my question is also, what happens, first of all, I need clarification. How many people are in Rojava?
About 4 million people.
Okay.
So, it's big. It's not just a squat, right? It's a massive community.
Okay, I'm going to kick you from the studio. No, actually, stay there. So, wait, how did you say 4 million?
Yeah, that's right. 4 million people.
That is insane. Why do you feel like maybe the left has ignored or even accused the Kurds in Rojava of being foreign actors? And I mean, I have an answer, but I'm curious as to yours as well.
Yeah, I mean, so the United States arrived in the region for this war against ISIS. Mm-hmm. And what Kurdish friends would say is, look, we didn't invite them here, and we're not asking them to leave. We can't ask them to leave. They do what they want, but they have to get their benefit from their presence in the region. And as long as the Americans, the Russians, the Iranians, the Turks, the Israelis are all fighting one another throughout Syria, this movement has little choice but to try and navigate those tensions and survive and benefit from this great power conflict. But obviously that comes with a lot of compromises, and they're always at risk of being either attacked or exploited.
Lastly, because this is just as bad. But it's fine. It's so late there. What happens now with the fall of the Assad regime and the assumption of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to power? Is Rojava being largely left alone, and is that sustainable?
So there has been fighting. Scores of people were killed. Another 100,000 people were displaced following the fall of Assad. That has now settled down for now. There is an uneasy peace, but the tensions remain very high. And whereas the last 12 years refusing to engage politically with Rojava in any way, they have rushed to normalize Islamists who have taken over Damascus and are working closely with them to bring them together with Israel as well, as part of that broader strategy in the Middle East we were discussing.
So you think that obviously the current regime in Syria is much more amenable to Netanyahu, even though they're occupying southern Syria, Israel is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for them, it's not an ideological thing. They are Islamists, they are serious about hating Israel, but they're also very pragmatic. And ultimately, they want to align with the West and over some of South Syria to Israel.
Right.
And so be it.
Damn, that's yeah. And I think, this is what this was, looking back, a lot of people defended Assad's war crimes vis-a-vis a, pro-Palestine framework, which to me was always really, really awful because Assad killed, 500,000 people, and we can walk and chew gum. But of course, now we see, without Assad, sort of a little more amenable stance that the Syrian now government is taking towards Israel, as if Israel will be satisfied with just a little bit of Syria. Tech is against us, but that's okay, because hope without hope is all about, in the hardest of times, coming together and imagining something that you might not have otherwise been able to. And so here we are. Matt Broomfield, that is the book, Hope Without Hope, Rojava and the Revolutionary Commitment. It's out today from AK Press. Go buy it from AK Press, y'all. And thank you, Matt, so much for being here and slogging through.
Thank you for your perseverance.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, better luck next time.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.